Have you heard of cryptocurrencies, digital assets or NFTs? Have you heard that people are making money from it, but you're not quite sure in terms of whether to include it in your investment portfolio? In this week's episode, I'm going to break it down into basic terms and try and position in terms of why having exposure to the crypto market might just be very beneficial for you. You do not want to miss this episode. Hi, welcome to this week's episode of the Financial Dispensary with me, Dr. G. In this week's episode, we're going to lift the veil on crypto and digital assets and have a look and a better understanding in terms of what exactly it is and why or whether we should include it in our investment portfolio. So let's get stuck in. You'll see that the term that I chose there is that it's potentially the fifth asset class to include in your investment portfolio, and later in the presentation I'll expand in terms of why I say that. But let's first break it down and start very slow and explain some basic terminology that you have to understand. The first very important part is what we call cryptography. So there's a very basic example. Let's say there's two people, Alice and Bob, and they want to send messages to each other. Let's say Alice wants to send a message to Bob just saying, "Hi Bob," or "Hello Bob," but she wants to make sure that nobody else can intercept that message or understand what she's saying to Bob. So what will happen is she will type the message, "Hello Bob," but will then encrypt that message using Bob's public key. So I'll explain all the terms as we go through this. And you'll see that "Hello Bob" will then be changed into gibberish, something that you don't know what exactly is said. And for Bob on his side to then decrypt that specific message, he would need to have his private key to unlock kind of that message, decipher it, and understand that Alice actually just sent the message, "Hi Bob," or "Hello Bob." So there's an encryption part and there's a decryption part. And you can see there's two keys available, a public and a private key. To kind of explain or make the kind of analogy in terms of a bank account, your public key is your bank account number. So if you want to transfer money to anybody else, you can tell them what your bank account number is. So that's in the kind of public domain. You're not scared of sharing that with anybody, and you need to share that information for somebody to be able to transfer funds to you. However, the private key is similar to kind of your internet banking password. That piece of information you definitely do not want to share with somebody, and hence why you want to keep the private key private. So that's basic cryptography. The next big term or key aspect that we need to understand is what is a blockchain. So again, there's a description. It's a digital database or ledger that's distributed among the nodes of a peer-to-peer network. Lots of confusing terms, but let's break it down. Firstly, it's digital, right? So instead of having a database that you write things down on a piece of paper, this is all in a digital realm. It's a database, meaning that you add kind of transactions or records to this database, and it's distributed amongst kind of nodes to make up this kind of network. So in a nutshell, what a blockchain is that it's a chain of different blocks, and each block contains a lot of kind of transactions. So transactions are added to a block, and then the block is added to the chain to form a blockchain, and it's just a big database, and lots of other people, it's distributed amongst different nodes, have a view in terms of what instructions gets added to the database. Another way that we can look about it is the following. So looking at this kind of picture, you can see on the left hand side we have those four kind of institutions that have kind of let's call it instructions or transactions. All of that transaction runs through a clearinghouse, which is a centralized entity. So whether the centralized entity is the government, a bank, or other big corporation, it's all centralized. And that centralized institution then has access to determine what instructions gets added to the ledger or the database. That's currently the world that we operate in, mostly across the world. On the right hand side, you can see that's kind of a distributed kind of network where the 4 banks with their own kind of ledgers, you can see the arrows. Each party in that transaction, in that network, is able to transact with each other. So there's no centralized kind of institution or government that sits in the middle and controls what is added or not added to the database. So that's a very key concept in terms of the technology behind distributed ledger. So let's take a very, very practical kind of example. Let's say I walk into the shop and I want to buy this, it's a hand and body lotion at Woolworths. So what would happen? I would walk into Woolies, I would take this off the shelf, walk to the teller, she would scan the barcode, and let's say it costs $50, I need to pay this. I would then take out my bank card. You can see I bank with Standard Bank, and please note the orange-ish kind of 2 dots, which means that it is a Visa card, MasterCard, linked to Standard Bank. And I would tap this on this point of sale. A couple of seconds would pass by and I would get a SMS notification on my cell phone. The 50 Rand would be deducted off my bank account and it will hop into Woolies bank account, and I would walk out with the product that I just purchased. Right? So we all can relate to that. That's the process that happens. But what happens in the background? And this schematic is a better kind of understanding in terms of what exactly happens in the background. In the far left, it's me walking around in the mall, and I walk into Woolworths. Next to Woolworths, you can see that Merchants Bank is, let's say, FNB as an example. So let's say FNB's primary bank account is with FNB. On the schematic top right, you can see that's me walking into the shop, and let's say I bank with, based on my card that I'm utilizing now, is Standard Bank. So for money to flow from my Standard Bank account into Woolies' FNB bank account, there's this centralized layer. So we call them the settlement layer. This is where the kind of clearing house, and this is why MasterCard, you can see on the bank card, it's got those little dots on there. MasterCard plays the role in terms of connecting the 2 banking institutions. So without going into too much complexity, you can just see the centralized players involved, and it's quite a long, lengthy process for me to transact and get the product that I want. So with blockchain and this kind of new technology that's busy developing, we have these following features. So starting at the kind of the top there, the faster settlement, obviously it makes sense. If you strip out these centralized middlemen that control the flow of data or information, obviously settlement should happen in theory quicker. That's one of the key areas that a lot of the protocols working and operating in blockchain are trying to kind of scale up, is in terms of how quickly from pressing the button does the transaction actually settle and finalize. It's obviously very secure, which is based on that first slide that I showed you in terms of cryptography. So things are encrypted. It's super secure. It's decentralized. Remember that I showed you there that there's various nodes or players involved in the network. So it's split across, similar to that distributed ledger technology. Consensus and unanimous just means that all the people that form part of that blockchain need to decide together whether a transaction is added to a block that's then added to the chain or not. And the purple one is the very important one. It's immutable. Immutable just means that you cannot, once it's added to the chain, you can't change it ever. It is permanent, forever. So those are some of the key features in terms of blockchain technology. So remember, blockchains and distributed ledger, and then also the other key theme, which is a smart contract, in terms of how you how you build specific protocols on top of this, is the foundation in terms of cryptocurrencies and all the protocols, and there's thousands of them being built on this specific technology. Now, blockchain forms part of a grouping of technologies that we call exponential technologies. So other kind of exponential technologies that fall into this categories are things like 3D printing, AI or machine learning, nanotechnology, robotics, gene technologies. So these are cutting edge kind of technologies that's currently being developed. And the reason why all of them fall into this bucket of exponential technologies has to do in terms of the speed at which these technologies are busy improving. Remember, almost exactly a year ago, nobody knew about ChatGPT. Within a year, I wouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people know in terms of how to utilize ChatGPT and incorporate artificial intelligence in their day-to-day life. That's how quickly things change. And the big kind of challenge that we as humans struggle with is our brains are structured to think linear. So you can see in terms of that line, linear is just 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 3, 3 becomes 4. That's how our brain is actually just put together. Where a lot of these technologies are exponential. 1 becomes 2, but then 2 becomes 4, and then 4 becomes 8, and 8 becomes 16. And that difference is what we kind of term kind of the disruption, because we think that things will just kind of progress in a very linear fashion, but it then actually improves much quicker than what we expect. And blockchain, forming part of this kind of exponential technology group, is something that, although you might not today be using blockchain technology at all, I promise you, because of this exponential technology and the way and the speed at which people are working currently on this technology, it will be sooner than what you expect that you will start be utilizing kind of blockchain technology, cutting out the centralized institution that we all start transacting with each other peer-to-peer, just meaning I'm going to transact directly with Woolies and bypass all the other middle players. So bypass Standard Bank, FNB and MasterCard. There will just be a kind of a peer-to-peer transaction between me and Woolies. And it's going to happen much quicker than what we all expect. So that's a kind of a basic kind of understanding in terms of blockchain and where it fits into the bigger scheme of things. But hey, Gustav, okay, I'm here to make money. How does it bring it all together to me? So on a previous episode, I'll drop the description up there. I kind of highlighted how you need to position or how you need to choose the right kind of investment for you. And during that presentation, I highlighted the 4 main asset classes that you have to invest in when you decide which kind of investment works well for you. So you can see on that list again, it's cash, bonds, property, and equity. Cash being just money in the bank where you earn interest. Bonds is just a long-term kind of loan agreement, traditionally to governments or big institutions. Property, we all know it, bricks and mortar, but you can also have a listed or corporate property as an investment option, and then equities being a share in a specific company that's listed. Those are the 4 components, and depending on your risk profile, we can build a portfolio that will kind of tick all the boxes. So if you're like more conservative, you'll have more cash, and if you're more aggressive, you'll have more equity. And again, you can then decide to invest in those 4 components in South Africa or obviously abroad or offshore or whatever your local environment is that you operate in your own domestic economy and then also offshore. So those are the 4 building blocks that we currently use when we build an investment portfolio for clients. So let's just see in terms of how those markets performed. And the data that I have here is obviously for our local market, which is here in South Africa. I chose a 5-year kind of term. The reason just for 5 years, it kind of strips out, it kind of smooths out the performance. Remember, we've had kind of a couple of confrontations / wars. We've had COVID during the last 5 years. We've had a lot of change during the last 5 years. And I think a 5-year figure will kind of smooth it out quite nicely. So in our local market, the JSE, the all share, just the index, if you just invested in the index, you got 9.3% per year. In listed property, you lost 3.5% nearly per year. That's obviously got to do with the COVID pandemic that hit. Our bond index performed with a very solid 7.15 per year, and the STEFI, which is just cash money in the bank, performed at 5.87%. So there you can see, as expected, equity being the most aggressive performed the best, and then cash actually, listed property had a negative time during because of COVID, and then cash coming in second last. So I took a kind of example and just said, let's go back in time. You had 100,000 Rand that you could invest for 5 years. How did your investment perform? So if you invested 100,000 Rand 5 years ago in the JSE, you would have had roughly 155,000 Rand. In bonds, which is the bond index, you would have had 141. In property or REIT, you obviously had that negative return, so your 100,000 actually lost money and you're now only on 83. Cash, you would have had 133. And then I added a couple of additional ones just to kind of to color in the picture a bit. Let's say you had kind of an idea that the global market would have performed better, and you invested in the MSCI World Index. That's kind of the offshore, so the entire world, how did it perform? 189, so obviously very well performing. Please just keep in mind that asterisk, the Rand depreciated by 30% against the dollar over that last 5 years. So that's why the returns would have been boosted substantially, because capabilities, and you knew that technology share companies would perform well over the next 5 years. Nasdaq did fantastic at 261, and good old gold also performed quite well, again driven by that strong devaluation of the Rand against the dollar, coming in at 204,000. So looking at that bar property where you kind of lost money, and again this is listed property, if you had to guess, or kind of looking at the numbers, 155 for equity, and then going offshore would have pushed it to 200 plus ish kind of return. So if I had to ask you the question, if you invested in crypto 5 years ago, and again similar to this, not specific protocols, tokens or coins, I'm talking about just the market in general, what do you think your return would have been, knowing that those are the alternative kind of investment opportunities that you had available? Would you have lost money? Would you have made some money? Would you have made a lot of money? What do you think? 100,000? Any guesses? If you invested in the crypto market over the last 5 years, you would have had 1.5 million Rand. That's a 15x time. Again, driven, remember there is a 30% Rand devaluation. Most of the cryptos do trade against kind of the US dollar. So again, I utilized the US dollar, but it just goes to show in terms of the tremendous opportunities that are available within the crypto space. As I said, remember, you don't maybe even know about crypto at the moment, and that's why I said the technology is only beginning now. But remember, they do form part of the exponential technology group, so they will in the future start playing a very big role. So there are, just to show you in terms of the kind of the return over the last 5 years, in excess of 1,200% you would have made in that 5-year period. I didn't even take the top of the market, because that would have been an absolute a very kind of scary number. But there you can see in the graph how it has been performing. So please, just a word of warning, you can see during the last bear market, the crypto market lost nearly 75% value. So crypto definitely is a very speculative, very high risk investment. So please do not ape into any specific token or protocol or coin. That's where myself and our team are positioning ourselves to kind of assist and help clients in terms of how to incorporate crypto in their total investment portfolio. And as per my heading right in the beginning, my view is the following, is that yes, we do have the 4 asset classes, they're not going to go anywhere soon, but I see crypto or digital assets as the 5th building block that we can utilize to build an investment portfolio. So your question is that, do you want to have exposure towards crypto? How much exposure do you need in terms of crypto and digital assets, and how to incorporate all of that? So we are still very early in terms of our journey towards utilizing crypto technology, the blockchain technology, but it is around the corner. And again, because of this kind of exponential technology, it's going to happen much quicker than what you expect. And that's the big thing. So remember, your brain or our brains are structured to be linear in nature, but we always kind of over or underestimate in terms of the speed at which kind of technology will change. So there you have it. If you found this week's episode intriguing, be a pal and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Share it with family and friends if you found it valuable. And if you find the content in terms of what I'm trying to produce, and subscribe to the channel, maybe even ping that notification button. As I mentioned there, if you have any questions or concerns, you can pop it in the comment section. All my socials, how to contact me and where to contact me, are in the description of the video as well. As I said, I specifically position myself as a financial advisor that's very pro in terms of crypto and digital assets, and I make it an opportunity available to you that you can engage with me, and I can sit and look at your existing portfolio and see how and where we can incorporate crypto, and also exactly how to do that. So if you have any of those kind of questions, just head over to the website, set up some time for us, and we can have a discussion in terms of how to go from here. And that's it. Until next week, thank you very much and goodbye.